The death of 6-year-old beauty queen JonBenét Ramsey made national headlines. The crime became a media phenomenon, much like the O.J. Simpson trial. And if losing their daughter wasn't hard enough, John and Patsy Ramsey also had to fight claims that they had a hand in her murder. It was the day after Christmas of 1996. The body of little JonBenét Ramsey was found in the basement of her family's upscale home in Boulder, Colorado. At 6 years old, she was a child beauty queen, competing in pageants much like her mother, a former Miss West Virginia. Early that morning, Patsy Ramsey called police to report that JonBenét was missing. When they arrived, Patsy shows them a ransom note found in the house. Police conduct a search but find no sign of JonBenét. 7 hours later, John Ramsey finds his daughter's body in a little-used room in the basement. An autopsy showed that she'd been beaten, strangled, and possibly sexually assaulted. It wasn't long before police shifted their search from a possible intruder to the Ramsey family itself. The Boulder DA said John and Patsy were under an umbrella of suspicion. The case became a media circus, and the family was being tried in the court of public opinion.
I did not kill JonBenét. I did not have anything to do with it. I love that child with my whole of my heart and soul.
The investigation dragged on for months with little progress and no arrest made. John and Patsy put their house on the market and moved to Atlanta, not far from where their daughter was buried. In 1998, a grand jury decided there was not enough evidence to charge anyone with JonBenét's murder. Tragedy struck the family again in 2006 when Patsy Ramsey died from a recurrence of ovarian cancer. Then in 2008, 12 years after that fateful Christmas, John and Patsy Ramsey were finally exonerated in the case. New DNA testing techniques proved that JonBenét's parents were innocent, and the Boulder District Attorney's Office sent a letter of apology to John. JonBenét's case was reopened in 2010, but still, no suspects have been named. John Ramsey has told his story in a powerful new book called The Other Side of Suffering. He joins me now. John, it's great to see you.
Nice to be here.
The media frenzy that you experience is unlike anything I've ever heard from a private citizen. It exceeds that which most politicians experience who ask for it. You actually had telephone repairmen, or people posing as repairmen, trying to tap the phones at your home, and a Jewish reporter kneeling beside you at communion trying to get you to say something as you knelt to take communion.
It was madness, absolute madness.
John, you know, I think most of us remember the story, but it's hard for us to conceive the agony that you're going through having lost a daughter, but this wasn't your first daughter to have lost tragically. Your older daughter, Beth, had been killed in a car wreck just a few years earlier.
Yes.
Now you're facing a second daughter's death. Adding to that, you've been accused of the murder.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the real pain was the loss of our child. So the accusations and the craziness that was going around us was there, but we were already near mortally wounded from the loss of our child. So it in a sense, it distracted us in an ironic way, in that we had to deal with how do we get from the house to church, or how do we get from the house to Burke School without being barraged with cameras and microphones.
And Burke was your other son?
My young son, who was 9 at the time.
And one of the things, there's a powerful moment in the book. Patsy and Burke are at the grocery store. And they look over, and there's a tabloid, and in it says, "The brother did it," talking about Burke. He's a kid.
9 years old. No, that's very hurtful. And you know, we tried to keep all that away from Burke. We tried to shield him. We tried to give him as much of a childhood as we could continue to give him. But it was tough.
Rarely do I read a book where I find myself so completely enthralled and unable to stop reading, and I feel compelled just to dig into the story. And this is one of those stories.
Well, thank you.
Because I think I knew what had happened, but I didn't know the depth of it, the humiliation that you and Patsy endured at the hands of a local police department that would not accept really no for an answer. They were determined.
Well,
why? What was going
I don't
on?
know. They placed their bet early. They made their decision very early and wouldn't deviate from it, regardless of evidence or lack thereof. I don't know. I can't comprehend why they didn't. You know, we understood, and it was explained to us, that police always look at the caregivers first and the parents. And we thought, okay, we understand that, but don't stop there, please. You know, and of course they did. I don't know.
One thing that I find amazing, how do you keep from being angry and bitter and just wanting to get revenge at the press and the police and all the people that wronged you? And I mean, by anybody's objective standard, they did.
Yeah, well, I'd be less than honest if I didn't say I felt that way for a while. But I spent a lot of time thinking about what forgiveness was all about, and did a lot of reading, a lot of study. And I went through 3 phases, I guess, of understanding, for my benefit, what forgiveness really is. And forgiveness is a gift I give myself. It's a release of that anger and that desire for revenge. It doesn't matter that the person you're forgiving may not even know you're forgiving them, doesn't care whether you're forgiving them, but it's a gift you give yourself. And it took me a while to get to that point, to understand that.
Well, there's so many things that I want to get with you, and we'll take a break, and then when we come back, more with John Ramsey and this amazing story. Stay with us. We are back with John Ramsey. He is the author of The Other Side of Suffering. John, speaking of suffering, one of the parts that you were accused of was that you exploited your daughter, the pageants and all the things that sort of took her from being a little girl. Do you regret any of that?
Well, it's hard to sort that out because obviously we were criticized so much that, gosh, I wish we hadn't done that. Patsy and John Bonet just had fun with it. You know, Patsy came out of the Miss America environment. It was a talent, poise, intellect kind of a contest, and that's what she tried to steer John Bonet towards. John Bonet was a very extroverted child, and give her a microphone, she was ready to talk or sing. And so she was trying to give her a venue to explore her talents and see if she liked it and was good at it. But it wasn't the main part of her life, and yet, of course, that's how it was portrayed.
But that's how it was portrayed,
sure.
as if you guys were the sort of pageant parents, but that's really not it at all.
Not at all. Not at all. Patsy used to hope that John Bonet would lose a few of these so she would understand that you do lose in life occasionally.
There was also that sense that you look back at, you were very open, you're very active in the community, people came into your home for Christmas. This happened Christmas Day. I think that's what people forget, Christmas night.
Yep.
So do you feel that may have opened you to a vulnerability?
Yeah, I think it did. I regret that. I think it's good to be anonymous as much as you can. And we were not. It was a small community. We had a rather large business in that community, and they would run articles about us occasionally. We were growing rapidly and hiring people, and I don't know. I think that perhaps targeted us.
Is anybody still working on this case actively from...
Well, there are men and women who came into the case on their own, seasoned, retired homicide detectives that continue to work on it as the need presents itself, and I'm grateful for that. Lou Smith was one of the key guys that did that for years. Now, he died a year ago, but which was a loss of a friend and a real ally. Lou used to tell me, he said, John, I'm going to get this guy.
One thing that's been very evident is that a lot of the scientific methods, particularly DNA evidence, is what eventually completely cleared you and Patsy.
Yes.
You got an apology from the district attorney, finally. Different district attorney that originally hunted you down. How gratifying and validating was that?
Well, it was gratifying in that it was a step forward. It was a huge step forward. We'd crossed a bridge that was important in terms of solving the case. In my mind, I didn't look at it as necessarily a point of closure, but it was progress, and that's how I viewed it.
How did you stay with some level of faith? Because this would be the kind of experience, and it's not just the John Bonet death, but Beth, and then the media circus that you went through, accused by the police. They're supposed to be the good guys. They turned out to be the bad guys. Yet you did not give up on your faith. How did you maintain it?
That's part of what I tried to deal with in the book, to help people with the same issues I dealt with. When Beth was killed, my oldest daughter, the first words out of my mouth were there is no God. I would just scream that. I hit bedrock, and I started to grow from there. And I think anytime something tragic happens in one's life, their faith changes. I've met people where it just went away. They said, well, there can't be a loving God if this is what's happened to me. But it grew, and I began to understand what God promises and what he doesn't promise. And he doesn't promise us protection from difficulty. He promises to get us through difficulty, and I began to understand that. And I also, kind of after the fact, started to see where God had put people in our life along this difficult path that helped dramatically, Lou Smith being one of them.
Yeah.
I thought, that's how God gets things done. He works through people. And it was very clear to me, looking back, that indeed there were people in our life at just the right moment that got us through. and that, in my mind, was God. So my faith was very much strengthened, and that's what I wanted to help people with in the book.
And I would say, John, that I think that's what comes through more than anything. It's a very compelling narrative of what happened, but more than anything, the conclusion that I come away with is that despite all of the challenges and all the pressures, you were able not to escape those things, but to find God's peace and God's grace through them. It is a remarkable story. The book is called The Other Side of Suffering. By the way, good news, all the members of our studio audience are going to get a copy of John Ramsey's book.
Wonderful.
And, I appreciate that for the audience. And I want to say, too, that the message that came through to me, and I hope it will to you as you read his remarkable book, is that you don't get to choose the circumstances that come into your life. There are going to be things that you didn't ask for. But it's not that you're going to be all by yourself and abandoned when it happens. And I do hope that it's something that you'll never forget. It's a powerful, powerful message. The other side of suffering, and I hope you'll always be on the other side. Coming up, we're going to be rejoined by Robert Davi and an old Blue Eyes classic. Stay with us.